Hello, this is Mike, and welcome back to our ongoing Godot game engine tutorial series. Today I'm actually going to be covering a user request, and that's covering something called parallax scrolling. Now the reality is, in order to cover that, we're going to be covering something that I should have probably already touched on in the past, and I kind of missed it somehow, which is layers. Parallax scrolling uses layers in a particular way. Now, if you've never heard of it, well, first off, layers are pretty common in software these days. It's like how you order things on top of each other. So how things in virtual depth are ordered, where often using something called a z-index, which indicates how 2D images or even 3D images are stacked upon each other in the virtual depth of your monitor. Whereas parallax is a very specific thing. It's where your background of your game moves at a different speed, or potentially at a different speed than the rest of your game. It's very common. Even if you think back to old-fashioned movies, you had a lot of ones where they would be standing stationary in a car, and the landscape would be moving in the background. That's an example of using parallax to mimic motion. Very common in video games. Almost all 2D platformers have parallax to some degrees, often for cloud scrolling in the background, etc. And ultimately, this is all being solved using something called layers. And the important thing is layers also allow us to do things like do a foreground HUD or head-up display, or so we could layer up a high score over top of our project, etc. So we're going to look at all of that today. It's going to be a fairly quick video. The topic is actually quite simple once you know how to use it, but it's not immediately intuitive. So let's just jump right in. We're going to make a new project here called, let's go to the layers demo. And, oops, that doesn't make any sense. Ooh, why are you starting there? Very odd. Alright, let's go to temp, enter, create folder, layers demo. Alright, we'll use that. Alright, so create this project. At this point, you've seen this all 100 times already. So let's save our scene. Oh, we need a root node. Node sounds good. Now, one of the challenges, and here's where layers become very important, is in our scene tree or scene graph over here. All of the things inherit the motion of the things below them, which is where a layer comes in special, because it's a bit of an exception, and it won't necessarily move. Otherwise, if we moved we move all these things, everything will come underneath them. So that'll make sense in a second. Let me just now go ahead and save. Default's fine. Let's set this up as our run project. This feels like something that could be set for automation. Okay, go ahead, run it. Fresh install, so first time I've run. All right, there we go. So there's our new project, and right off the hop, we're going to go ahead and create a sprite in the foreground. That way we can actually see depth. We can see something in front of it, and we can see something behind it. So let's just go ahead and create a new sprite. And not centered. We'll use our default icon, like so, and we'll just position it somewhere. So this is, you can think of this as layer 0. By default, everything is either in front of or behind this, but anything you create on a flat hierarchy is on the same layer. So there is a natural layer that is created. You can think of, again, as 0, and then whatever we create, layers are created in front of it, and parallax layers are created behind it. And that will all make sense very shortly. But right now we have our default layer. So right here, see, simple sprite, and we're going to want to be able to move it around. So let's attach a quick script to this guy. No, dot get up, like so. Why didn't you create? There we go. Let's get rid of pretty much everything. So we're going to respond to the movement command. Set process input is true. We've seen this all before, nothing new here, so I'm not really going to cover what I'm doing. If this doesn't make sense, refer to a previous tutorial. No doubt I've covered everything I'm doing right now. But basically we're just checking the input. Input type equals input event dot key. So if a key is pressed, position equals get position. Oops. Get position, and if event dot scan code equals key left. Oops, forgot my semicolon. I've been working in too many C languages lately. Cur pos x equals cur pos x minus 5. So we're just going to move along the x-axis. If you press left, or as you might be able to guess, we're going to do the same thing for right. Key underscore right, like so. So cost.x equals cost.x plus 5. And then finally, set POS equals POS. Yes, I realize I'm updating the position even if they pressed any other key, but you're going to update it to itself, so it's not really a big deal. So now we go ahead and run this, and if I press, come on, why are you not updating? You know what, I ran into this the other day. I think this is a new bug. So let's go to my script, grab it. Let me just quickly check the script that's attached and clear that and load it and run. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's a newly introduced bug, if that's a Windows 10 problem, but I've run into it a few times where the first script I create doesn't automatically attach. So as you saw, I just cleared it out and added it back, and then suddenly it works. I don't know what's going on there. That seems to be new behavior, though. Anyways, so there we have our simple sprite on layer 0. If I hold down the keys, it moves in different axes, like so. So now we're going to go ahead and create, first off, the request was for a parallax layer, so let's go ahead and create one behind it. And this is a two-step process, basically. First, we need to create a new node called parallax background. So under the tree of your node, so this will be appear to Sprite, but not below it, or not containing it. We'll create a new, and it's parallax background. As you can see, this inherits from canvas layer. It's a special kind of canvas layer, and it's one that is behind layer 0. So we have this new layer now. There's not really much you set for this. No, mirroring is down below. I don't think you actually set anything. So then child it to parallax background. We go ahead and create a parallax layer. And this is where the magic happens. Okay, so now we have, come on back. We have this layer that's now in behind our sprite. And you can see if you come down here, if you have multiple, you can influence that using this Z value and make them otherwise, but we're only going to have one, so that's not going to be a big deal. But this mirroring is going to be somewhat important. I'll show you why in a moment. And I'm using completely not my legal rights downloaded from the interwebs stuff here. So you don't need to use whatever graphic you want, but I just downloaded a seamless cloud graphic and then a foreground graphic with transparencies. Let's go ahead and import both those things now. Save them to my desktop, I think. Yep. Alright. Oh, stupid. I don't know why it just doesn't default to root. Alright. Import. Alright, so we now have our two sprites available. So owned by your parallax layer, not the parallax background, but your parallax layer. We're going to go ahead and create a new. And I'll just use a texture frame because I don't need positional information. This isn't going to move. I'm not going to be moving it around. You could use a sprite if you need more advanced logic. Why am I not getting it? Frame. I don't know why it didn't show up under that. Alright, so now we have our texture frame, which is going to be owned by our parallax layer, and then now we can actually apply a texture to it. So let's go ahead and apply sky. So there you go. As you can see, here's our camera view. So I'm not using, obviously, all of this texture, and it's just downloaded from the web, but it's purely for an example. So now we have this layer here in the background, which is perfect. Now what we want to do is attach a script to it so that it moves independently. And the script is going to be attached to the parallax layer, not the graphic. So we're going to move the layer, not the graphic it's attached to. So new script, and let's call this scrolling background. Goddamn. Create that guy. Very, very, very simple script. All we're going to do is say, yes, we have per frame processing. And obviously now we need to implement process. Delta, go. Tooltip, go away. So get our current position equals get underscore position. Curve stuff x equals curve position. X. minus 100 times delta. So we're going to move at 100 frames per, or sorry, 100 pixels per second, and just update it. Simple as that. So, quick logic. Obviously, tell it that we have a process loop. Inside, we get the current position, incremented by whatever 100th of a pixel update is to give us a total of 100 pixels per second, and update the position. And that's it. That's all that's required. So now we head on back, and we should see our sprite will stay stationary, but our background will move. And there you go. So there is a parallax background. Now you're about to see a problem. Not really a problem, but we just ran out of level, right? Make sense? That's because, well, we got to here. So we basically scrolled off screen. Now there's two ways you can look at this. And why I picked this particular graphic, you see this edge here and this edge here are identical. This means if I actually extend it out, it's going to be something called seamless or tiled texture. So this allows you to actually infinitely scroll it if you wish. It's a very easy way to extend this out virtually within the Godot editor, and that is to go back to your parallax layer here and enable mirroring. That's the guy. Now, first off, our background image, this guy, is details. All right, it's 1300 by 1109. We're only going to actually do it along this axis. So every 1300 pixels, we want to mirror it. So that's where this comes in. And we'll just go 1300 and 0. So now what you'll see, oops, because I didn't press enter, is nothing. There. So now we've got twice as much work to twice as much room to work with. And that's what this mirroring function does. Is it enables you to basically stretch out or repeat a background image over and over and over again in your parallax layer. What we can also do here is potentially, and here's where the logic comes in, is you could detect when your current location or your current camera's midpoint is at 25% or 75%. So when it hits 75%, so right here, tell it to go to 25%, which is right here, and then that will cause basically an infinite scrolling effect. I may have actually done that in an earlier example on just using a sprite as your background as opposed to using this. So go back through my previous examples. If it's not there, if it's something you can't figure out, let me know, and I can easily hack together some code to show you how to do that. But you can easily make an infinitely running background, no problem at all, using this mirror. Basically just mirror across, and like I said, 25%, so you've got it fully covered on screen, and then 25%, and then, so the 25% marker here and the 75% marker here will be exactly the same due to this mirroring. So you could just transition this loop infinitely, and it will just run forever. But now we will see, basically we run through this entire cloud background, and it will loop, but since it is seamless, you're not actually going to tell. Eventually it will hit the end, and this is why if you do need that infiniteness in your level, you can do it the way I just described, that algorithm of flipping it, the 25 and 75% points. But that is it. That is parallax background. Very, very simple stuff. Very, very handy. Very, very cool. Now, let's look at doing something in the foreground. And this is actually quite simple as well. So we go back, parenting off our node, we create a new node, and it was that canvas layer. So we want to go ahead and create parallax layer. Where is it? Canvas layer. So now we're in the foreground. It's really the only difference, and I can go ahead and let's attach a sprite this time. You could do a texture frame, you could do a sprite, doesn't really make a difference. We just want to turn centering off and set the texture to my columns here, there. So now we have this image in the foreground. All right, lock you, bitch. You know what? I'm happy where it is. So this is in front of our sprite, and the clouds obviously are behind the sprite. I could resize it, scale it up so that it looks better, but ultimately your game, you can finesse more time into it. I just want to show you how things can be in front of and behind each other. And let's go ahead and run that. And there you go. Now, it makes it look like, because of the way that I have the graphics set up, it makes it look like the columns are moving too, but they're actually stationary. So these are stationary, the clouds in the background are moving, and then I can use the arrow keys and you'll see the sprite moves. So we now have 3 layers going. I could actually animate the foreground layer if I wanted to as well. Could loop it as well, etc. All those things, but generally you don't. And this is actually showing you the 3 layers. So your parallax layer, your paragraph's background is where you put your parallax layers. You can have multiple. So if you have layers of depth in the background, you can create multiple parallax layers. You're just going to have to set that z index so that they draw accordingly. But you could have scrolling clouds in front of a running waterfall, in front of etc. etc. So you can have as many layers going back as you want. Obviously, there's performance hit involved in each one, but not that much. But then when you want the foreground layers, all you do is put them on a canvas layer, and that's it. Then you're done. However, one other very common thing that you're going to want to accomplish is probably going to be a head-up display. This is like a stationary, non-moving layer at the very front for drawing on the screen. And this, again, is easily accomplished. So we can make another canvas layer. Like so. And let's rename this guy to HUD. And what are we going to put on HUD? I guess we will put text label. Alright. So we need to attach a script to that. So I don't know why, but the text method is not an editable property. I don't get it. Set text.gd, create that script, and all we're doing is self.add text store here. Obviously, you'd set font up, you do some graphics, you do much more than this. So I just want to show you like a foreground layer, and that's probably it. I don't know if it's positioned right. No, yes, it is. So, and let's run that. Stop and run. So there you see in the foreground we have the score being shown. Now it's working on top of things just because of the order I created them, but if you wanted to like specifically specify, you would have to give the Z order of the various layers. But they're working in the order I'm providing them because I'm actually doing things from back to front. So my layout is working, the rendering is going to get them in this order as it is, but if I'd actually created the HUD here, you would have to manually set the Z index of the layer, which is set there, your layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, so I'll do, say layer 5, I'll show you what I mean. So layer 5 should be the frontmost layer, like so. Now let me just go back to our canvas layer, and we will set that to layer 8. And now our text is obscured. So there's where the layers come in important. So that's pretty much it. It's a very powerful functionality. It allows you to easily implement things like parallax scrolling, foreground scrolling, layering things on top of each other. It's something you will probably use quite often. So sorry I didn't cover this already. It's kind of an oversight. Basic overview then, everything that is created just basically without layering is at 0. Think of that as, you know, the normal clean sheet. And then anything that's created in a parallax background is behind 0. Anything created in a canvas layer is in front of 0. And then you use the layer value for canvas layers to determine the order things are layered on top of each other. And that's it. Oh, I guess the only other thing was, and this is where I think some people are being thrown off, is the parallax background isn't, it's just telling things that it's in the background. It's ultimately this parallax layer that is the reversible. I could have multiple layers underneath this parallax background, but I would only have one parallax background. So this is the layer equivalent to a canvas layer. It just happens to be, it has to be parented to a parallax background for doing, to making it, pushing it behind the render hierarchy there. So that's an important last thing to remember. And then of course there's this mirroring, which enables you to repeat the layer over and over and over again. And I could have mirrored in both directions, but I just needed to mirror in the one. So that's it. That's basically what I intended to accomplish. Hope that all made sense. Hope it was useful. Cheerio. See you. Bye.